Welcome to Catalyze, the Connected Leaders Academy virtual conference designed to reshape your vision of transformation. As we navigate the evolving business landscape, our speakers will unveil innovative strategies to manage and initiate change. Prepare to adapt, innovate, and lead, ensuring your role as a catalyst in this transformative era.
Hello. Welcome. My name is Nick. I am a 10X Elite Business Coach. And the topic of today's coach is going to be 10X follow-up, simple strategies to double your sales. So before we get into that, I'm going to reveal some statistics on follow-up. And these statistics were gathered from MIT, InsideSales.com, and the Harvard Business Review. So a study was based on like 3 years of lead response data from 15,000 leads and more than 100,000 call attempts. So I'm going to reveal some statistics on follow-up. So over 30% of leads are never contacted at all. Most of the salespeople in the study only made like 1 or 2 attempts. Only about 12% made 3 attempts, and fewer than 5% made 6 call attempts. Once you get to 6 call attempts, it raised the contact success to 90%, which is almost a 70% increase. So you want to get to 6, okay? 80% of all sales, all deals are closed on the 5th to the 12th attempt. So whatever you're selling, wherever you're selling it, you need to follow up if you want to make the sale. The fortune's in the follow-up. So we're going to go over 2 major areas of focus during this talk. How to follow up with your leads and customers using like simple, strategic, and sustainable strategies, and how to leverage these strategies with customers and your internet, your e-leads. So the first part, facts about follow-up. Time matters. Speed is power. So if a rep can reach out within the first 5 minutes, they can increase the possibility of making contact tenfold. So you want to have a minimum, like a targeted lead response time of 5 minutes or less. In another study, only 7% were hitting this mark. So very few. The good news is very few companies, very few individuals are doing it. So there's an opportunity. So if you can get to them quickly, speed is power. If you have a targeted lead response time within 5 minutes or less, you will increase your sales. Reps who follow up within an hour. If you follow up within an hour, they were 7 times more likely to have like meaningful conversions. So, the old saying, time is money, speed matters. So when you hear this term called follow-up, what's the definition of it? Well, the definition of follow-up is an action or thing that serves to increase the effectiveness of a previous one. Follow-up is to pursue an effort to take further action. Like I'm following up for them to take further action. 79% of all marketing leads never convert, right? So it's a lot of time, energy, effort, money. People are paying into these leads or creating them themselves that never convert. So there's a ton of opportunity. So you're going to hear me say this throughout the entire talk. Fortune is in the follow-up. A lot of people never do it. The only difference between a contact and a contract is the R, and the R is for the relationship. The relationship needs to be built and nurtured. There's a difference between being professional and pestering people. It's not enough to recognize like all of your leads will require follow-up. Like it's not enough just to recognize that they're all going to require follow-up. You've got to embrace it. Right? You've got to embrace it. It's just part of being successful in business and sales and life. You need to follow up. 73% of B2B leads, they're not sales ready. 50% are qualified leads. 50% of the qualified leads aren't ready to buy yet. Therefore, they require follow-up. Positive people see problems as opportunities. 65% of the B2B companies surveyed attempt to having no need no lead nurturing, it's a mouthful, no lead nurturing systems in place at all, right? They get a lead, they contact it once, but there's no system in place to nurture it. So ask yourselves, do I have that system? Am I doing it? And if you're already doing it, that's amazing. Continue to do that. You're ahead of the game. So we want to nurture our customers. We want to nurture our clients. That's the R in relationship. And there's two important distinctions. Follow-up is critical to any business, whether it's a product or a service-based business that you offer. It's critical to your survival. The second thing is a good or a great follow-up system will nurture the leads. Okay, there's a difference between nurturing, pestering people. Remember that. So how do I nurture? Well, we're going to give you some tips. There's some ripple effects once you get this thing of follow-up mastered. Once you get good at it, once you start doing it, there's a ripple effect. There's benefits to you, your organization, your top line, and your bottom line. You won't have to offer deep discounts, number one. Second thing is you're going to generate more sales-ready leads at a lower cost. Companies that get really good at nurturing leads generate 50% more sales-ready leads at a 33% lower cost. That's the value in doing this. Okay. The third thing is you'll close larger deals. Fortunes in the follow-up. Nurture leads make 47% larger purposes. So the 5 principles I'm going to talk to you about are the 5 principles of powerful follow-up. Principle number 1. So if you're taking notes, write this down. Principle number 1, be the first to follow up. I know a lot of times if I'm looking for a quote, an estimate, I want to bid on something, sometimes the first person who gets back to me, they win by default. They got back to me. I'm looking for new blinds for my home. I'm looking for some interlocking. I'm looking for some landscaping. I'm looking for a marketing company. Believe it or not, a lot of people don't get back to me. Why would they do that? They're in business. They're busy. They're doing other things. They don't have adequate staff. They're afraid of rejection, whatever the case may be. So I said it at the beginning of the talk, try to have a minimum lead response time. Be first to follow up. Principle number 2, that's the always rule. I'm always going to follow up. If you don't have always, you're going to end up with nevers. If I don't always follow up, probably never going to do it. Or I might get around to it later, but you'll get busy. You'll have another lead. You'll have another client. Life will happen. You'll get busy doing something else. Okay. Always follow up. When I meet somebody, when it's for business or have a lead, I always follow up no matter what. 100% of the people, 100% of the time. So have some always in place. I'm always going to call. I'm always going to have an email. I'm always going to text. Whatever that method is, have always. Right? When I meet somebody, when I get an inquiry, it can be automated, but have some always in place so you don't end up with nevers. Never going to get the client, the prospect, or the deal. Principle number 3. Make the most important sale first, and that's the one to yourself. You've got to sell yourself on what you're doing is important. Sell yourself on the value. You're investing in your business, you're investing in your future, you're investing in your company, right? Doing the follow-up, it might not be the most fun in the world. Lots of people won't answer. You will get rejected. You will get put to voicemail. You won't even know if it's working sometimes. But if you do it repeatedly and consistently, you will get a result. So sell yourself that what I'm doing is value. You won't see an instant result, right? Like if I work out once, I don't see an instant result. If I save a little bit of money once, I won't see a significant result. But if you do it consistently and repeatedly over a long period of time, you will get results from follow-up. So sell yourself first on what you're doing. Okay, the most important sale first is the one to yourself. Number 4, don't be a dinosaur. Don't go extinct, meaning don't become extinct to your prospect or your lead. If you don't follow up, they'll forget you ever existed. Okay, and you can also take in that, like, don't neglect the importance of follow-up. So it kind of ties in with principle 3 and 4, but don't be a dinosaur, meaning don't go extinct by not doing it. Principle number 5, commit to doing whatever it takes, right? And I have this adage to myself, 100% of the people, 100% of the time. There's so much software, there's so much automation, but there's so many things you can do as an individual to reach out and contact somebody. Okay, so do whatever it takes. Be committed to follow up, and remember the statistic. 80% of all sales are made between the 5th and the 12th contact point. So every time, this is how I sell myself. Every time I do a follow up, it's an investment. I know I need to cross that threshold of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's a lot of work, but I'm committed to it. I'm committed to getting that sale. It's one step closer. And it's easier for me to follow up with people I've already spoke to, or if they've opted in to something I'm doing, than starting all over and hitting that reset button, right? I'm not starting at step one. I've already had 4 or 5 contacts. I might have had conversations. We might have had email exchanges. We might have done a Zoom call. We might have met in person. I might have given them an estimate, whatever the case may be. I have more skin in the game, so it's worth my while to continue to follow up. So I'm going to do whatever it takes so I nurture that. So we're going to go over some methods and strategies in the remainder of this talk on the back half. So ask yourself some of the following questions. Do you have a system in place for follow-up? How many times do you follow up? And be honest with yourself. Be brutally honest with yourself. I wasn't always great at it. There were sometimes I did it, sometimes I didn't. Kind of like working out. Sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. But when I'm at my best, I do it consistently and frequently. And frequency leads to greatness. You got to get frequent before you get great. So how many times do you follow up? Is it consistent? Is it sometimes, do I prejudge the lead? Do I only follow up when I think there's a deal there? Okay. Number 3, what channels do you use? Do you only email people follow up? Do I only phone call people? Do I only text people? What channels do I use? Am I creative? Your creativity will follow your commitment to being successful in follow-up. What are some other channels? You can message them on Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, IG, Insta, like whatever. So you want to actually discover your client's preferred method of contact. It's not what I prefer. If I'm an email person, if my client prefers, you have to discover that and have awareness. But you can follow up multiple times using multiple channels, different channels. And my preferred method of communication is the client's preferred method of communication. So you need awareness, you need to discover it, be aware, and then communicate with your client or prospect on their preferred method of communication. So discover the channel. And then ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, how would you rate your current follow-up? How would you rate it? Okay, I'm going to go over on the time remaining 6 pillars of follow-up. So the pillar number 1 is the commitment. You got to be committed. Okay, you have to commit. Hey, I'm doing this. How do you decide on anything? How do you do anything? You make a decision. Hey, I'm committed. Can't just say it. You can't talk about it. Be about it. I'm committed. I'm committed to following up with people. 100% of the people, 100% of the time. Fortunes in the follow-up. Okay, we do all these things. We have our web pages, or it could be our webinars. It can be live chats. You can put on an event, pay a lot of money, put a lot of effort in to getting these people to come into your ecosystem. But if you don't follow up, you're leaving money on the table, I promise you. So pillar number 1 is I'm going to be committed right here, right now to this thing called follow-up. Number 2, I've heard it on many talks today, CRM, customer relationship management. You can't measure what you don't manage. You can't measure what you don't track. Okay. Without visibility on what you're doing, it's hard to have a high degree of accountability, right? So if you don't have one, there's many out there. Start using it. Start using it frequently. Number 3, organization. You need to be organized. And that's what separates the professional from the amateur. You got to be organized. Scripts. If you don't have one, there's lots of people that can help you with one. But when I say if you don't have always, you're going to have nevers. It could be as simple as having bullet points, and you're always going to ask the same questions, or it's kind of like a guide, rather than just making it up. If you don't have something structured, or you're not sure on what you're going to say, you may avoid it. You may avoid making the call. You may avoid sending the email. You don't know what to say. There's not much value. I'm going to get into some tips about that as well. Accountability. If you don't like being managed, and most of us are entrepreneurs, especially in this particular group. But if you don't like being managed, you have to have a high degree of accountability to yourself. Okay, accountability, like this is what I'm going to do. What is my minimum daily standard? Am I setting time in my day for this? We make time for the gym, could be your kids, could be your clients. We make time for what's important. But if your business is important to you, structure a time, fit it in, right? If you don't have a lot of time, maybe you do 15 minutes once every 2 hours, but that will compound through the day. Or you can get it all in just like a workout. I'm going to do a half-hour follow-up in my AM routine, a half hour in my evening routine. And if you do that, think how much it can compound, right? If I follow up with like 20 leads in the morning, 20 leads in the afternoon, that's 40, that's a couple hundred follow-ups that I'm doing in a week. If you don't have time for that, cut it in half. But that might be a hell of a lot more than you're doing right now. So have some accountability to yourself. Or for your team, if you have a team, have some accountability. You know, is it required? And the sixth pillar is have an unreasonable attitude, massive actions, 100% of the people, 100% of the time. So follow up, be professional, be persistent, don't pester people. And there's a method you can do by being professional, using the different channels, using a variety of different messages, adding value in your follow-up, not just saying, hey, it's Nick, I'm following up with you. How can you add value? How can you continue the conversation to add value? So it's more like a continuance of the conversation, less of a presentation. How can I continue to add value in my follow-up that's going to keep my prospect or my client engaged in what I'm saying, what I have to offer, and keep their interest level high? Your creativity will follow your commitment, how committed you are to what you're doing and adding value. So we have a thing called VAFU, value added follow-up. Add as much value as you can on every interaction. It could be a link. It could be something that you didn't think about. It could be more detailed information, but add value, not just a phone call. So whenever you're doing follow-up, how can I add value in this exchange? So ask yourselves, based on everything I've talked about to this point so far, what, maybe you've identified some things. What do I need to work on the most? Are there any obstacles in my way that I maybe need to clear so I can start taking action and moving towards some of these? And the remaining time that we have, I'm going to talk about a few mistakes that will shortcut yourself to success. So we want to avoid these things. So the biggest mistake, if you get nothing else from this talk, the biggest mistake is not making the call. 30% of all leads are never contacted. Believe it or not, you're like, hey, that's crazy. I call everybody. Okay, that's great. Your competition's not. Okay, the biggest mistake you can make is not making the call. Okay, making the call is senior to what you say. Make the freaking call. If you're busy, make the call. If there's something on your calendar, make the call. Okay, sales is a numbers game. Okay, and sales isn't a dirty word. You will have to ask somebody to do business with you for your product or service at some point of time. So the biggest mistake that all of us make is not making the call. So number one, make the call. Almost every problem people face in their careers and other aspects of their lives, whether it's failed diets, marriages, financial problems, are the result of not taking enough action. Okay, action is the middle finger to doubt. Activity creates activity. The second mistake is not making enough calls, right? So ask yourself in the past, hey, have I made enough calls? Or have I made enough texts? Have I sent out enough emails? Have I sent out enough DMs? There's so many ways you could do it. You can do voice messages. People are very curious. I've had a high degree of success when I send a video follow-up. If it's a text, they see it. If it's a video, we're curious. They may or may not get back to me, but most of the time people play because they want to see what's on the video out of curiosity. A voice note, same thing. They don't know what's inside. It's like a gift. They have to open it up to see what's there. So every social media, Messenger, LinkedIn, they all allow you to do voice recordings. They all allow you to do videos. You can mix them up and you can be really creative with that. So not making enough calls is the second one. And we've heard the saying, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I want to be prepared, not scared. Salespeople, professionals, they make their luck by making follow-up calls, right? I want to be at the cause, not at the effect, like, hey, these people aren't getting back to me. I want to be at cause, and I want to be the one making the calls. When I make enough calls, it will generate activity. It will fill my calendar. They will buy my product. They will hire me for my services. If I make enough, people will do business with me. But I'm going to take the responsibility that I'm going to be proactive in making them, not reactive, waiting for something to happen. So mistake number 2, it's simply just not making enough calls. Third mistake is making random calls. Okay, you need volume and you need frequency, right? Frequency leads to greatness. You got to get frequent before you get great. And at the beginning, you might not be good, but with time, through repetition, you'll find your voice, you'll find your rhythm, you'll find out what works, and you'll get in the flow. But don't let that stop you at the start. Most things, when we begin them, we aren't great. But before you know it, you'll be much better than you are now. And if you're already doing them, continue to do that. With follow-up, we want to be the stream, long, ever flowing. We don't want to be the rock. The stream will beat the rock. It will eventually wash that rock down. Stream beats the rock. So be the stream, consistent, persistent, ever flowing. Okay. And the speed also matters. I said at the beginning of the talk, targeted lead response time, 5 minutes or less. These are some key points, takeaways. 5 minutes or less, try to have a targeted lead response time of 5 minutes or less. And for sure, 100% of the people, 100% of the time, and always try to follow up within the first hour of somebody contacting you. And if you can do it yourself or somebody on your team, a real person is always better than automation, but automation can help be a bridge. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys listening today. And thank you so much.
As we transition to our next expert, remember that each strategy and insight is a step toward becoming a transformative leader in your field. Visit connectedleadersacademy.com to stay engaged and informed. The journey of change is ongoing. Let's move forward together.